Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off because today I'll be reviewing Dungeons and Dragons Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos from Wizards of the Coast. Should your players and characters be chomping at the bit to enroll in 4 years of rollicking adventure at Strixhaven? Or if you purchase this book, will you find yourself wishing that school was out forever? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. As mentioned in the open, I'm going to be reviewing Strixhaven for Dungeons & Dragons from Wizards of the Coast in just a moment. But first, I do want to remind you that there's still just a wee bit of time left for you to get into the running to win my copy of the alternate art cover edition of Strixhaven. All you need to do is check out last week's live show, the Gaming Gang Dispatch episode 722. Check out my page through and first look at Strixhaven, and I will tell you how to get into the running. I'm going to announce the winner on tomorrow night's live stream. So that is December 7th is when I will announce who wins my copy. That said, today I am going to be reviewing Dungeons and Dragons Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos from Wizards of the Coast. This 224-page hardcover is arriving in stores tomorrow. Once again, December 7th. Does carry an MSRP of $49.95. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Strixhaven. A couple of things I do want to mention before I jump on, well, probably more than two, really. First off, I do want to point out the fine folks over at Wizards of the Coast were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my thoughts about this with you. These days, it's important that you know that. Also, there are going to be some spoilers. I'm going to stay away from like big, major spoilers, but here there be spoilers. So if you are a player hoping that your dungeon master is going to run Strixhaven, then I would definitely recommend tune out now. There's over 1,000 other videos on the Gaming Gang channel. Feel free to kick back with one of those and point your dungeon master to this video, though, if you are hoping that he's going to run this for you. Lastly, I am going to stay picture-in-picture up here. So I'm going to be cutting off the upper left portion of the book. I am not going to page through all of this book. In fact, if you want to get a better look at Strixhaven, then I would definitely recommend checking out the Gaming Gang Dispatch episode 722, as I previously mentioned. What I am going to do is I am going to talk about various parts of the book, thoughts about it, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to be a positive review. So just letting you know ahead of time. Jump on in. Give some credit to the folks who were involved in Strixhaven. So we got our designers, we've got all of our illustrators. There are loads of internal illustrators in here. I will point out, I like the artwork throughout the book. The artwork is really well done, and I dig it. I dig the artwork. One of the few things I actually dig about this. So a few things. Let's jump on in. There's a player facing section. It's sort of player facing. And I know there are a lot of people talking about, oh yeah, the new options, the new backgrounds, new magic items, new magic spells that are contained within Strixhaven. For the most part, outside of the new race, which is the Owlin, which are sort of like owl people. All of these backgrounds and magic items and magic spells revolve around this setting, this world. Now, this actually is ported over from Magic the Gathering. I got to be honest, I haven't played the Strixhaven like expansion, the releases for Magic. So I know almost nothing about the setting. Here it's just kind of like, well, if you don't want to put it in the world of Magic the Gathering, just throw it wherever you want in your campaign world. So if you're running, say, a Forgotten Realms campaign, just throw it anywhere. It's kind of their attitude towards it. So we get a bit background about the university, get an overview. The layout of the campus, the various different colleges, there are 5 different colleges, I will admit, are fairly interesting. One thing to point out, this is not a university where characters go to learn magic. So there are no, new magic spells that they're going to be learning at like level 7 and things like that. No. What this university is, it is a place of knowledge where basically the player characters learn how to do things enhanced by magic. And there's really not much explanation behind it either. It's kind of hand waved off as far as just to get you jumping on into the adventure itself. But like I said, the actual schools are pretty interesting. The different colleges are actually kind of interesting. They all have conflicting concepts. There are polar opposites. So, for an example, we have the Prismari College, and it is magic intertwined with art. So, how would magic improve art of all various different kinds? So, we have the conflicting concepts of perfection and expression. So, I thought that was kind of interesting. They all have it. All 5 of the colleges have these conflicting aspects to them. There's another college, Witherbloom, and it's life and death. Those are the 2 conflicting concepts of it, and each of the schools are overseen by 2 faculty members who represent each of those conflicting concepts. So we had a bunch of information about the various different colleges, as well as a breakdown of some of the NPC faculty as well. Here's Witherbloom. Then we start getting into the player options, the character options. And I know there's a lot of talk. Hey, we've got this brand new race. It's the Owlin, these owl folk. And all the information about this new race, this new player character race, is right here and right there. That is it. There is more page real estate devoted to artwork featuring the Owlin than there is to actually explain what this race is. I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't. It's sort of like, well, here's a few paragraphs. There you go. There's the new race that we're trumpeting that is included in this book. Then we get in some new backgrounds. Once again, all these backgrounds are tied into Strixhaven. They're not backgrounds that you're going to utilize really in any other campaign. Same thing with the magic items. Same thing with the little trinkets as well. Each of the players are going to also receive a Strixhaven Memories sheet, which is essentially a tracking sheet for all these new mechanics that have been thrown into the game and new rules as well, which the reality is, if I were running this, I certainly wouldn't use any of these rules. And we're going to get into a little bit of discussion about that as well. So then we have a few different things. So not only will your characters be taking on the adventure, which is through 4 chapters. But they're going to establish relationships with NPCs. They're going to have extracurricular activities. And there's also jobs that they can take on as well. And none of it is detailed very much. It's one of the big issues that I have with this adventure, because that's essentially what this book is. This book is an adventure. It's an adventure book. There's a little bit of character options, but this is essentially a 4-chapter adventure. None of this feels magical. None of this, there's no wonder to this at all. We have this magic university where you're not actually learning magic. Your player characters aren't learning magic. It's just how magic can influence other things without any discussion about what that is. Same thing with these little extra mechanics to the game with jobs and exams, and the worst of them is relationships. Where all it is, it's just dice rolling. That is essentially all it is dice rolling. And to me, that is not role playing. Sitting around the table as your dungeon master gives you an info dump and tells you to roll whatever ability check, and then tells you what that ability check actually did, is not role playing to me. And I know there are people out there who, they enjoy that. They could sit all night long and just play combat encounter after combat encounter after combat encounter. And that's fine. I'm not here to tell you that's the wrong kind of fun. That's absolutely up to you. But to me, that is not a role-playing game. And Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to have a sense of wonder, even for people who've been playing D&D for decades. Adventures should have some sort of moment where you're like, oh, wow. Oh, man, that's cool. Nothing like that exists in here. So we have a bunch of different NPCs, which the NPCs are kind of cool. And they're kind of featured NPCs that the characters can engage in relationships with. Once again, we have some new rules, some new mechanics for relationships. And essentially, they boil down to, if you're nice to somebody, you get a relationship point. If you're not nice to somebody, you lose a relationship point. If you have 2 relationship points with an NPC, they're your friend. If you add another point, make it 3, then they're beloved, which is, to me, completely odd. Once again, nothing is organic in this adventure. Everything is mechanical. So any sort of NPCs that the characters create a relationship with, it's all essentially mechanical. All throughout the adventure, too, we have these different set pieces where they're supposed to be introduced to the players by an NPC that they have like one relationship point with, or at least one. It's sort of like, okay, none of that is organic. Nothing in the adventure. There are a few times where it's a specific NPC that's named that is essentially going to give the player characters a fetch quest. But the rest of the time, it's just, use an NPC that the player characters have one relationship point with. But there's really nothing in here to create an organic sense of, well, this NPC is important to us, as opposed to just, well, throw them on in here. The other thing is, if you lose relationship points, if you have negative relationship points, then the NPC becomes a rival or an all-out enemy to you as well. So the adventure kicks off. It's 4 chapters. Each chapter is going to be a year at the university. And essentially, at no point do you have any sense that your players are going to feel like they're actually students at a university. There's just set pieces, and then exams. This happens, exam. There are no experience points that are being tracked throughout this adventure. So it is essentially, okay, once this takes place, now your characters are level 2. Now they're level 3. Doesn't matter if they've completely screwed the pooch on all the little set pieces throughout that chapter, they're still going to get these level increases. I am not a fan of just arbitrarily awarding levels to player characters on a whim when it's like, okay, well, we hit this point in the adventure. Now you get to level up, even if they haven't earned the right to level up. I'm not necessarily completely against the whole, okay, well, we're not going to sit here and track all the experience points, but hey, you guys have done really well throughout this adventure. Now it's time to level up. I don't have an issue with that. I do have an issue of, okay, well, it's this point. Boom. Now you're this level. To me, that's just lazy design. I'm not going to go through all of the adventure, but I am going to highlight a few different things. So right off the bat, the first thing the player characters end up doing is they have their first day on campus and they go to an orientation. And the orientation, they're basically given a scavenger hunt. And they have these clues that they're given. At no point, unless the dungeon master has gone way out of their way, at no point have the players been exposed to the different areas of the university where they're able to solve these clues. Essentially, once this takes place, it's actually even noted in the book that, okay, well, now the dungeon master should explain all the different places that are in the central complex of the university. Once again, just a big info dump. And then the players can say, okay, well, we're going to go here. I'll give you a great example. So in this first chapter, essentially the player characters fight a gimped mimic. So it's not really a mimic. It's not much of a challenge. And 4 giant frogs and pass an exam and boom, they're second level. The mimic and the giant frogs, they don't actually have to defeat. Something else that I'm never a big fan of is the bailout. So essentially, especially when the player characters are on campus, if things go bad for them, then some NPC comes in and bails them out. It's like, what? Seriously? It's like, oh, if one of the characters is knocked unconscious, then this faculty member shows up and they defeat XYZ, and then they start handing out healing potions. Once again, to me, that is absolutely just lazy adventure design. Something else you're going to encounter throughout this is very uninspired treasure. Remember, we're not tracking experience points, so you don't really need to worry about treasure too much because it's not going to count towards experience points. The magical treasure and things like that, almost all of it is just straight out of the book. They're book magic items. I don't mean this book. I mean the core D&D books. I would think you're probably getting the impression that I feel that this is absolutely phoned in, and you would be correct in that assumption. Something else that runs throughout this entire adventure, all 4 chapters, is players show up at a location, something's there, it attacks them. There's no parlay, there's no way to get, oh, boom, you're there, it attacks you. Once again, to me, that is some of the worst game design out there. But then again, there are people out there, I pointed out before, they'll sit there and play all night. Just rolling dice, rolling dice, rolling dice, rolling dice. There's no role playing to their role playing. There's just rolling. We've got some cool maps. Those are completely wasted. We've got cool artwork, also completely wasted in this book. I'm just really disappointed in this, especially since I absolutely loved The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I thought it was fantastic. And it really kind of epitomized what I feel is the best aspects of not only just Dungeons and Dragons, but role playing games in general. This is the flip side. This epitomizes a lot of the stuff I absolutely despise about, especially 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, bad adventure design, so on and so forth. So throughout the chapters, the second chapter prepares the player characters for this big event, this big contest. It's like Strixhaven's Quidditch, sort of. It's the Battle of Strixhaven. And I have to laugh. I'm going to see if, let's jump back here. I think it's in this chapter. Here we go. Maybe that's just the invitation. Anyway, regardless. So there's supposed to be this big, big lead up to this. And this is like the big set piece of that year. And all it basically is 3 phases. The players have to roll XYZ ability challenge. Okay, so you have to roll dexterity athletics. All right, you have to roll wisdom ability check. And if they pass these for their team, they win. It's like, really? Like I said, there is so much in this. It's just mechanical. I'm going to tell you this. I'm the dungeon master. I'm going to read this box. I'm going to do the read aloud. And then I'm going to tell you to roll a D20 for whatever. That's essentially this entire adventure. The third chapter, the big deal is that the player characters have been invited to this exclusive masquerade ball. That's like this huge event on campus. So as juniors, now they've been invited to it. There's a big build up to it. And like everything else in this adventure, it's just a build up to nothing. During that chapter, the player characters find that there's the big bad is using their influence. A shadow is fallen over the university. And then nonsensically, it's a bullywog, a disgruntled bullywog mage who this university is supposed to be, the faculty is supposed to be the creme de la creme. These are the greatest magicians and scholars of their day. Yet, this bullywog has created a way to be completely immune to their magics, but not these 8th level player characters. It's like, okay. And the senior year, essentially, the player characters are sent off on a fetch quest to defeat the big bad. And they're told, hey, if you do this, you don't have to worry about classes. Then we have a bestiary at the end. There's a few interesting creatures in here. Once again, the vast majority of the bestiary is devoted to, like, for an example, first-year students. We have students from the various different schools, the various different colleges. And to be honest, they're not going to be utilized anywhere else but in this adventure. Then we are going to wrap up, and we get a poster map, and that is Dungeons and Dragons, Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos from Wizards of the Coast. Let's swing on over to the other camera, and I will provide my final thoughts and a review score. All I got to say is, what a disappointment. What a disappointment. And I know there's going to be people out there who are going to say, oh, this book is great. I love this book. This book is awesome. And that's fine. You know what? This is a review. This is my opinion based on the way I like to run games and I like to play role playing games. Although I certainly don't get an opportunity to play as a player character very often. So that's all based on my experiences. This is just not the sort of adventure I would care about. I find it very hard to believe that a good many Dungeons and Dragons players out there won't find this adventure to be absolutely forgettable, if not have their dungeon master just bail on running the adventure halfway through it. There's just far too much. This is what's going on. Roll some dice. There's very little player agency. It's a railroad. And I mean, it is a major railroad. And I have said in the past, especially when I'm talking about Call of Cthulhu, railroads can still be entertaining. People can have a lot of fun in an adventure that is a bit of a railroad. Here, not so much. It's just basically, this is what's going on. Roll these ability checks. I, as the dungeon master, am going to tell you why you were just rolling those. Then there's a bunch of, well, you walk into this area, XYZ thing is there, and it attacks. This is the kind of adventure that I would see get like 2 stars over on Dungeon Masters Guild, as opposed to something that I would be expecting to see from Wizards of the Coast. If you followed the Gaming Gang Dispatch, there have been a couple of discussions during the live shows over the past 6 months about what could we expect, because the powers that be at Hasbro had basically said, hey, we need more Dungeons and Dragons material out there. No more of this just 2 books a year kind of routine. We need more content. And I had pointed out I was a little concerned that a lot of it would come out and it was just kind of just thrown together. Strixhaven is a prime example of it. 2 words that I would use to sum it up: lackluster and slipshod. Those are the 2 words I would use to sum up Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos for Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. Once again, I can't say it enough. I loved Beyond the Witchlight. I loved it. I thought the Wild Beyond the Witchlight was fantastic. And now we're back to the things that I really disliked when 5th edition first came out. This isn't the worst release I have seen from Dungeons and Dragons. That, I almost said crown, but it wouldn't be a crown. That goes to the D&D Stranger Things mashup, which was god-awful. This isn't god-awful, but even an experienced dungeon master, I think, is going to have a hard time tearing this adventure apart and rebuilding it into something that they're going to find worth not only their time to run, but worth the time for their players to play. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give D&D Strixhaven a curriculum of chaos a lowly 3 out of 10. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when I stream the Gaming Gang Dispatch live on YouTube Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Happy holidays to you. And until I see you next time, here's hoping all of you out there get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel? Or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch? Or finding out what YouTube recommends you check out here at my channel? And of course, don't forget, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com.